The smell of warm rotisserie chicken followed me down the grocery aisle, and then I watched a stranger slide her carton of eggs right in front of my cart like my place in line was invisible, and I stayed quiet even as something in me snapped. She smiled like it was normal, like I was supposed to move for her. And the worst part was the way everyone behind me started watching to see if I would fold. My name is Waverly. I am 28 and I work as an assistant manager at a small dental office, which means I spend my days soothing grown adults who act like the world is ending because of a cleaning. That afternoon, I had been doing the kind of grocery run that feels more like survival than errands. I was running on almost no sleep. My lower back had been aching since morning, the deep, hot kind of ache that makes you walk carefully, like your spine might crack wrong. I had a full cart because I meal prep on Sundays, and the store had been packed so tight that every aisle felt like a slow-moving traffic jam. Only 2 registers were open, too, and the lines were long, enough that people were leaning on the shelves, checking their phones, sighing loudly like it would make time move faster. I picked the shorter line and waited. I waited through the guy arguing about a coupon that had expired. I waited through a teenager whose card kept declining and whose face kept getting redder, while the cashier repeated softly, "It is not going through, honey." I waited through a woman who decided the conveyor belt was the perfect place to reorganize her entire life, pulling items out, putting them back, changing her mind 3 times. I stood there for what felt like forever, shifting my weight, trying to stretch without looking dramatic. Every few minutes my back pulsed, and I had to bite down on the inside of my cheek to keep from groaning. I had my earbuds in, but nothing playing, just the tiny comfort of pretending I could disappear into my own bubble. Finally, it was my turn. The customer ahead of me finished. The cashier looked up and nodded at me, and I pushed my cart forward until the front wheel bumped the little metal guard. I reached for the divider bar, already thinking about the relief of walking out to my car, already tasting the first sip of cold water I would have at home. That is when she appeared. She came in from my right, quick and confident, holding a carton of eggs in one hand and a bottle of milk in the other, like a prop in a play. She did not stand behind me. She did not hover politely. She stepped up beside the conveyor belt, leaned forward, and set her items down in front of where my first groceries would go. Then she looked at me with a bright, practiced smile. "Hey," she said, voice too cheerful for the tension in the air. "Can I just jump in real quick? I only have 2 things. I'm in a huge rush." For a second, I just stared. My brain did that delayed thing, like it could not accept what my eyes were seeing. The eggs were right there, sitting where my place began. The milk bottle was sweating onto the belt. She was already angled toward the cashier like the decision had been made. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Not loud anger, not movie anger, the tired kind. The kind that comes from being stretched too thin for too long, where one small disrespect can feel like somebody pressing on a bruise you have been hiding all day. I heard myself say, calm and even, "Sorry, no. I have been waiting a long time. I just want to get home." Her smile faltered, but only for a moment. Then her eyebrows lifted, like I had surprised her in an unpleasant way. "Seriously?" she said, and her tone changed, sharper, like I was the unreasonable one. "It will take 30 seconds. I kept my voice low. "I am sorry. I am not feeling great. I have been in this line." Her face tightened. She gave a laugh that was not really a laugh, more like a sound designed to make other people look over. "Wow," she said loudly. "Okay, some people are just miserable." The people behind me shifted. I felt their eyes on the back of my head. I could almost hear their thoughts. Just let her go. Why make a big deal? Be nice, be neighborly. Like kindness was always supposed to come from the person who was already worn out. The guy behind me, a tall man with a baseball cap and a basket of snacks, leaned forward like he had been waiting for his moment. "Come on," he said, not to her, to me. "It is 2 items. That is just being a decent human." My chest tightened, not because I thought he was right, but because I realized how easily a crowd can decide you are the villain. One small boundary, and suddenly you are the problem everyone can agree on. It was like high school, except now we were all adults holding groceries, pretending we had evolved. I looked at the woman. I looked at her eggs and her milk. Then I looked at the cashier, who had stopped moving and was watching us with that tired, cautious expression cashiers get when they can smell drama and want no part of it. I said no, I repeated, softer this time, because my throat felt tight. "Please move your items." The woman's eyes flashed. She did not move. Instead, she turned slightly so her voice would carry down the line. "Unbelievable," she announced. "I am literally in a rush and she is doing this. Like, what is wrong with people?" I felt my hands curl around the cart handle. My back throbbed. I could feel the urge to explain, to justify myself, to list all the reasons I deserved my spot. But I had learned something at work. When someone wants you to perform your pain so they can approve it, the performance never ends. They always need more, so I stayed quiet. I just stood there and let the moment stretch. The cashier cleared her throat. "Ma'am," she said to the woman, voice careful, "you need to be behind the customer if you want to check out." The woman shrugged like the cashier was silly. "It is 2 things," she said, smiling again, that bright smile returning like a mask. "It is common courtesy." The guy behind me muttered, "This is ridiculous." And then, because the universe loves to test you when you are already tired, the woman did something small but bold. She slid her eggs even farther forward, closer to the cashier's hands, like she was inching past my boundary one push at a time, betting I would back down out of embarrassment. I could feel my face burning. My heart was beating too fast. I hated that I cared what strangers thought. I hated that my body was shaking with a mix of pain and humiliation. I hated that one pushy person could turn a normal errand into a public trial. But I also felt something else, a decision settling in. At the dental office, I deal with bullies in polite clothing all the time. People who smile while they demand. People who use the word rush like it is a magic spell that makes everyone else irrelevant. And I have learned that the loudest person is not always the strongest. The calm person with the right information is. So I reached into my tote bag slowly and pulled out my phone. The woman noticed immediately. Her eyes narrowed. "Are you really going to record me?" she snapped. snapped, louder now, as if she wanted the line to judge me again. I am not recording, I said, still calm. My voice surprised even me. I am just checking something. What are you checking? She demanded. I did not answer right away. I opened an app. I tapped. My thumb moved steadily while my stomach twisted because I had noticed something the second she walked up. Something that did not match her sweet little rush story. And now I was about to confirm it. The cashier glanced at my screen and then back at me, curious despite herself. The guy behind me leaned forward again, like he wanted a front row seat. The woman crossed her arms, tapping her foot, her milk bottle sitting there like a flag planted on my spot. This is so petty, she said. Some people just wake up looking for conflict. I looked up at her and I smiled, not wide, not fake, just enough to let her think she had won something. Okay, I said quietly. Go ahead. Her face brightened. Instantly, victory. She scooped her eggs and milk closer to the cashier. The guy behind me let out a satisfied little huff like he had corrected the world. The cashier began to scan the items. And that was when my phone finished loading, and my screen showed me exactly what I needed to see. Hold on, tiny break. I read the comments when I am worn out, and seeing your location reminds me I am not telling these stories into an empty room. Like, subscribe and drop your city, state, or country. Now here is what happened next. All right, now let me take you back. Because the second I said yes, she stopped acting rushed. She stopped acting stressed. She settled into the moment like she had all the time in the world. And that tiny change, that relaxed breath she took, told me everything. The cashier said her total. The woman reached into her purse, still smiling, still pleased with herself. And I watched her fingers close around something that made my stomach go cold. Her fingers closed around a little plastic tag, the kind grocery stores put on keychains for loyalty points. And I felt that cold, instant recognition in my gut because the name on the screen above the register was not hers. The cashier paused with the scanner hovering over the milk. The monitor tilted toward me just enough that I could see it clearly. An account popped up, first and last name, and then a line of red text that looked like a warning. The cashier blinked and tried to hide her reaction, but it was too late. I had already seen the flicker in her eyes, the cautious shift in her posture. The woman kept smiling, like she could smile her way through anything. That should cover it, she said, voice sweet again. I shop here all the time. The cashier forced a polite laugh that did not reach her face. Of course, I just need a moment. The man behind me sighed dramatically, as if the universe had personally inconvenienced him. See, he muttered, loud enough for me to hear. Now we are all delayed because you had to be difficult. I did not turn around. I kept my hands on the cart handle, knuckles tight, my back screaming, my mind racing, because the second I saw that name on the screen, everything clicked into place. I had not opened my phone for no reason. When the woman first walked up, I noticed something too specific to ignore. Her tote bag. Not the cheap kind from the store. A canvas bag with a slogan printed across the front, worn from use. I had seen that exact tote bag before. Not in person, but online. A few nights earlier, I had been doom scrolling while my dinner got cold, and I ended up on a neighborhood group page where people complain about parking, porch pirates, and strangers who act like the world owes them a shortcut. Someone had posted a blurry photo taken inside this same grocery store. The caption was something like, "Watch out for this woman. She cuts lines and uses other people's loyalty accounts to get discounts, then gets loud if anyone says no." The comments were a mess. People arguing, people calling it gossip, people saying, "No, that happened to my mom too." Then one person posted a clearer shot, and I remembered staring at the woman's face and thinking, she looks like the kind of person who would make you feel guilty for having boundaries. That tote bag had been in the photo. So when she set her eggs on the belt, I opened the group again, not to record her, not to be dramatic, just to confirm what my eyes already suspected. And now, standing there, watching the cashier hesitate, I realized my instincts had not been paranoia. They had been pattern recognition. The cashier scanned the milk anyway, slow and careful, like she was walking on thin ice. The machine beeped. Then she scanned the eggs. Another beep. The total came up. The woman pushed a card forward, still smiling. "Go ahead," she said. "Run it." The cashier took the card, but her fingers tightened around it. "Is this your account?" she asked, voice still polite, but there was a new edge underneath. The woman's smile froze for half a second. "Yes," she said too fast. "Why?" The cashier looked at the screen again. "Because the name is different." The woman's eyes flashed, and then just like that, the sweetness vanished. Her expression hardened as if she had switched masks. "It is my sister," she snapped. She gave it to me. The cashier did not move. "Do you have the account holder's phone number or email to verify?" she asked. The woman scoffed like verification was an insult. "Are you serious? It is 2 items." The man behind me made a sound of impatience, but even he went quiet when he realized this was not about the line anymore. This was about something else. The woman leaned closer to the cashier, voice lowering, as if intimidation worked better in a smaller volume. "Listen, I am in a rush. Just ring it up. I do not have time for this." The cashier swallowed. Her eyes flicked toward the end of the lane, toward the little podium where the floor supervisor sometimes stood. Then she looked back at the woman. "I am going to call my manager," she said, trying to keep her tone calm. "It will only take a moment." The woman's head snapped toward me like I had personally summoned the manager. "This is because of you," she hissed, and suddenly her voice was not quiet at all. She wanted the line to hear her again. She wanted witnesses. "You just had to be a problem, and now look. Now I am being harassed." Harassed. The word hit me like a slap because it was so unfair, so backward. My pulse roared in my ears. I felt that familiar, sick twist of being misunderstood, of being cast as the aggressor when all I had done was exist in my own space. I could have snapped back. I could have argued. I could have defended myself in a way that made me look exactly like what she wanted me to look like. Instead, I breathed in slowly. I held my tongue. I watched because the truth was sitting right there on the screen above the register, and I did not need to raise my voice to make it real. A man in a dark polo shirt came over from the front end. Tall, broad shoulders, a name tag that read Beckett. His walk was quick and tired, the walk of someone someone who has had a long shift and knows exactly what kind of situation he is stepping into? What seems to be the issue? He asked, looking from the cashier to the woman to me, taking in the tension like he had seen it 1,000 times. The woman jumped in immediately, as if speed made her story stronger. This cashier is refusing to ring up my items, she said, pointing dramatically at the eggs and milk like they were evidence of injustice. I am in a rush and I have 2 things, and she is acting like I am committing a crime. Beckett turned to the cashier. What is showing on the account? He asked quietly. The cashier tilted the screen toward him, and I saw his expression change in a way that made my stomach tighten again. Not shock, not confusion, more like tired confirmation. Like, oh, it is you. Beckett looked at the woman. Ma'am, he said, voice flat but controlled. This account is flagged for misuse. The woman's face went pale for half a heartbeat, then flushed hot. Flagged, she repeated, loud enough to make people 2 lanes over glance over. That is ridiculous. Beckett held out his hand. I need the card. She clutched it tighter. No. Beckett's eyes stayed steady. Then I cannot complete the transaction. The man behind me shifted, and for the first time his annoyance looked uncertain. He had been so confident a minute ago, so sure I was the villain. Now he looked like he was redoing the math in his head. The woman threw her hands up. Fine, she said, dripping with fake outrage. I will just pay normally. Cash. Happy? Beckett nodded once. That is fine. She dug into her purse again, and that was the second twist. The one that made my mouth go dry, because she did not pull out a wallet. She pulled out a wad of small bills and a handful of loose coins that looked like they had been scooped from the bottom of a car cup holder. No card, no organized cash. Just messy, frantic money, like she had been prepared to run, not to shop. Beckett watched her count it with a calm that felt practiced. The cashier waited, hands folded. The woman's fingers trembled as she stacked the bills, and then she looked up at me again, eyes sharp, searching for something in my face. That is when I noticed the third thing. Her phone was on the belt now, screen facing up. A message notification flashed across it for a split second, and I caught 2 words before it vanished. Line trick. My heart thudded. It was not an accident. It was not just entitlement. It was a routine, a game. Beckett did not seem surprised. He watched her, then said, Ma'am, I am going to ask you one last time for identification. The woman laughed, bitter and loud. For eggs and milk? This is insane. Beckett's tone did not change. For the flagged account, I need to document who is attempting to use it. Her eyes darted around, and I saw it. The crack in her confidence, the way her shoulders tightened, the way her breath went shallow. She had expected guilt and pressure to work on me. She had expected the crowd to carry her through. She had not expected a system that remembered her. And then she did exactly what people like her always do when they realize they cannot win with charm. She tried to flip the story. She pointed straight at me. She is the one harassing me, she said, loud, shaking her head like she was disgusted. She stared at me. She made comments. She made me feel unsafe. She should be removed. I did nothing wrong. The words hit me like a flash of ice. Unsafe. Removed. Nothing wrong. It was a script, polished and dangerous because it had probably worked before. I felt my chest tighten. I could already imagine how easy it would be for strangers to believe the loudest person, especially when the loudest person sounded confident. Beckett turned his head slightly toward me. His eyes met mine, steady and assessing. Did you say anything to her besides refusing to let her go ahead? He asked. My mouth opened, and I felt that old reflex to over-explain, to prove myself, to beg for fairness. But I remembered the group post. I remembered the tote bag. I remembered the warning on the register screen. And I remembered something else too. At the dental office, when someone lies loudly, the best response is not to fight the lie with emotion. It is to anchor the truth with something solid. So I lifted my phone, screen already open, and I said quietly, I did not record her, but I can show you why I checked my phone. Beckett's gaze dropped to my screen. The woman's eyes widened just a little, like she recognized the page too, like she knew exactly what I was holding. And in that moment, the man behind me sucked in a breath, because he finally understood there was a bigger story here than 2 items and a line. Beckett reached for my phone. The woman lunged forward. No, she snapped, voice sharp with panic. You cannot do that. And I realized she was not afraid of me. She was afraid of the proof. Beckett took my phone carefully, like it was a fragile thing, and his eyes moved across the screen in a fast, practiced way. The woman's hand hovered in the air like she wanted to snatch it back, but she did not dare touch him. Her breathing changed, shorter, sharper. The fake, confident mask was still on her face, yet I could see the panic leaking out around the edges. The cashier stood frozen, scanning nothing, watching everything. Beckett's jaw tightened. He scrolled once, then twice, and the tired calm in his face hardened into something colder. Not anger, certainty, the kind that comes from recognizing a pattern you have dealt with too many times. He handed my phone back to me. Thank you, he said quietly. The woman let out a brittle laugh, trying to reclaim the room. This is insane, she snapped. You are really going to take some random gossip page seriously? That is harassment. That is defamation. Beckett turned slightly, so his voice carried without being loud. Ma'am, this is not gossip. This is a report, and we have our own record as well. The woman's eyes flicked to the exit just for a second, but it was enough. The man behind me, the one who had called me a jerk, shifted his basket to his other hand. His face was no longer smug. It was uncertain now, like he was watching a magic trick go wrong. Beckett nodded toward the cashier. Suspend the transaction, he said. Then he looked at the woman again. Step away from the register. I am not stepping anywhere, she said, voice rising. I did nothing wrong. I have 2 items. This is ridiculous. Beckett stayed calm. Step away, he repeated, and there was no softness in it this time. Or I will call security. The word security changed the air. It made the people in line straighten up. It made the woman's mouth tighten like she had bitten into something sour. She leaned toward Beckett, eyes wide with offended innocence, trying one last time to weaponize emotion. So you are just going to humiliate me, she said, loud enough that everyone could hear it. In front of all these people, because I asked for courtesy? I felt my back ache again, but it was different now. Not just pain, relief mixed with adrenaline. The situation was no longer balanced on my shoulders. The system had stepped in. The truth had weight. Beckett did not argue with her. He did not insult her. He did not match her volume. He simply reached under the counter, pressed a button, and spoke into the small microphone with the flat voice of someone following procedure. A moment later, a security guard walked over, the kind of person who looked like he had heard every excuse and stopped, believing in most of them. His name tag read Hayes. "What is going on?" Hayes asked. Beckett angled the screen toward him. "Repeat issue," he said. "Flagged account misuse," and she attempted to cut in line. "Now she is refusing to step away." The woman's face flared with anger so fast it shocked me. "This is unbelievable," she said, and her voice turned sharp and ugly. "I am being targeted. This is discrimination." No one responded to that. Not because they agreed with her, but because it was obvious what she was doing. She was throwing words like smoke bombs, hoping something would stick. Hayes held his hand out, palm open. "Ma'am, you need to step aside," he said. "If you want to make a complaint, we can do that away from the register." The woman stared at him. Then she stared at me. And I could see it in her eyes. The calculation, the question of whether I would flinch, whether I would apologize, whether I would shrink back into my cart and let her rewrite reality the way she wanted. I did not say a word. I just looked at her. She scooped up the milk so fast it sloshed under the cap. She grabbed the eggs like they were about to hatch. "Fine," she spat. "Keep your stupid store. Keep your stupid line. I hope you are all proud of yourselves." Then she tried to walk away like she was choosing to leave, like she was above it, like she had not just been stopped. Hayes stepped with her, blocking the exit path. "Ma'am," he said, voice still even, "you cannot leave with unpaid merchandise." Her steps froze. For one long second, the entire front end of the store went quiet. Even the beeping of another register sounded distant, like the whole building was holding its breath. The woman's face changed again, from rage to something tighter, fear dressed up as anger. She put the eggs down with a sharp smack that made the carton bounce. She placed the milk beside it like it burned her hand. "There," she snapped. "Happy?" Hayes nodded once. "Thank you." Beckett looked at her with the calm of someone who had made his decision already. "You are banned from this location," he said. "If you come back, we will contact law enforcement." The woman's eyes widened. "Banned?" she repeated, voice cracking on the word. "For this?" Beckett did not blink. "For the account misuse, for prior incidents, and for refusing to comply when asked." She opened her mouth, and I could tell she wanted to throw another accusation, another story, another smear. But something in the crowd had shifted. Nobody looked like they would buy it now. People were watching her the way people watch a tantrum in public, not with sympathy, but with that uncomfortable disgust that comes from seeing manipulation exposed. The man behind me cleared his throat. He said, awkward and low. "I mean, I did not know all that." I kept my eyes forward, my throat felt tight. Not because I needed his apology, but because I hated how close I had come to being treated like the problem simply for saying no. Beckett turned back to me. His voice softened slightly. "Ma'am, I am sorry you were put in that position," he said. "You did nothing wrong." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I felt something release in my chest, like a knot I had been holding all day finally loosened. The woman, now surrounded by the reality she could not control, did the only thing she had left. She tried to hurt me on the way out. She leaned toward me, just far enough that Hayes would not think she was doing anything physical, and she whispered, through clenched teeth, "You must feel so powerful. You and your little phone." Her breath smelled like mint gum. Her eyes were bright with hate, and I did not snap back. I did not smile. I did not give her the emotional reaction she wanted to carry with her. I simply said softly, "I feel tired." Then I turned my cart toward the belt and started unloading my groceries like she had never existed. The cashier's shoulders dropped with relief. She began scanning my items, and the normal rhythm of checkout returned, beep after beep, like the store itself was exhaling. Behind me, the man in the baseball cap shifted again. After a moment, he said, "Hey, I was wrong. I am sorry." I nodded once, still not trusting my voice. He hesitated, then added, "I just thought 2 items, you know? But yeah, that was not about 2 items." "No," I said quietly. "It was not." When my receipt printed, the cashier slipped it into my bag and leaned in, voice low. "Thank you," she said. She has done versions of that before. She tries to create pressure. People fold. I swallowed. "I almost did," I admitted. The cashier shook her head. "You did not." I pushed my cart toward the sliding doors, my back still aching, but my spine feeling straighter anyway. Outside, the air was cold, and the sky was already turning that late afternoon gray that makes everything feel a little heavier. As I loaded my groceries into my trunk, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For a second, my stomach dropped. I thought it might be her. I thought she had gotten my information somehow, that the drama was about to follow me into my real life. But when I opened it, the message was simple. It was from the neighborhood group. Someone had posted a short update. Same store, same woman, tried it again. Manager finally banned her. And under that, someone had commented one line that made my throat tighten all over again. Good. People like that only keep winning because we keep calling boundaries rude. I stared at that line for a long time, standing in the parking lot with my hand on the trunk door, listening to carts rattle and engines start. Then I slid my phone into my pocket and drove home. Later that night, when my back finally stopped throbbing enough for me to breathe normally, I got another buzz. This time it was an email from my dental office schedule, a reminder for the next day. One appointment name jumped out at me so hard I sat up straight. It was the exact name that had flashed on the grocery register screen. The account holder, not the woman who tried to cut. The real person, and the appointment note said something small that felt like a final twist, quiet and sharp. Patient requested to speak privately about fraud concerns and identification. I stared at the screen, my heart thudding, and I understood the full circle of it. The store had a record. The community had a record. And now the truth was moving through the places it needed to move, without me having to chase it or scream it. All I had done was stay calm and refuse to step aside. The next morning, when that patient arrived, I did not mention the grocery store. I did not accuse anyone. I simply handed her the intake forms, smiled politely, and watched her fill in her information. Then, when she looked up and quietly asked, "Has anyone been using my account?" I looked her in the eye and said, "Yes." And I watched the truth land exactly where it belonged. Now, outside the story for a second, this is what I learned. Some people do not ask for kindness. They test for weakness. They count on you being too tired to hold a line, too embarrassed to say no, too scared to look mean. But silence is not surrender when you are standing on proof. The calmest person in the moment is usually the one holding the real power.